Good evening. How is everybody? Remember to sign in. We'll wait till we get a quorum. I think that's what I call it, when you have enough people to actually have a meeting that counts. And probably most of you don't know this, but actually at your high school, if you did not have a certain amount of people that didn't show up, you do not get credit for the day. That's why they've always had a problem with senior skip day. It's because they got to make sure they have enough people in school to actually count it. Wow, everybody's popping on. This is looking good. Good evening. Hope everybody's having a good day. Was able to get out and work in the garden today. I did receive a lot of the posters and the homework that you did, so it's looking pretty good. So make sure everybody has their homework in. There's a few of you I'm going to have to contact because you aren't doing your homework, and that is not good because that means you are not going to get credit for driver's ed. Homework has to be completed. It's just not the pass-fail with the test. It is doing your homework. So make sure that you have that. Today's class, we cover a lot. We actually have 3 separate PowerPoints that we're going to be going through. And you had a lot of reading to do, too. So it was a lot on your part. I think we almost have just about everybody here. Let me just count here real quick. So there's 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, okay. Looks pretty good. Looks like we have just about everybody here. I think there might be one person that's not, but I'll try to track them down a little bit later. So let's get out of the music and get into what we're going to cover. So what I'd like you to do is get out a blank piece of paper and something to take some notes on. I hope you've been doing that with every class that we've had. But tonight's going to be pretty heavy with note-taking because we go through a lot of terminology, especially with the curriculum that the state has set up. So tonight is going to be, we're going to start off heavy in the textbook, responsible driving. Then we're going to go to the New Hampshire Driver's Ed curriculum. And then we're going to end up in the state manual talking about turning and signaling and passing and lane changes and things like that. So let's get right to the topic of vision. Chapter 6 in responsible driving talked about your vision, how well you see things. Now remember, when you take notes, only take the information down that I think is important. And I will say, this is important. You should write this down. And that's usually a hint that we're going to probably see this again on a quiz, midterm, or final. So the 5 aspects of vision that we'll be starting off with will be visual acuity, distance vision, depth perception, central vision, and peripheral vision. So the first one, and I do want you to write this down, is visual acuity. Visual acuity, and just plain and simple, it says whether or not objects or hazards in your driving path are sharp and clear. All I want you to write down is, can I see images sharp and clear? The thing that you need to remember is that when your eyes do not focus on something, it could be a pedestrian, could be a traffic light, could be a pothole. If you don't get a clear image, your mind hesitates and it basically second guesses. Is that really a pedestrian? Is that light really red or is it yellow? And when you have that hesitation, it's going to cause you to make a last-second reaction. And that's not what you want as a driver. Here's an example. At the bottom, the last bullet here, you're traveling 30 with very good vision. 20/20 is what you want That's perfect eyesight. You can read a street sign from a distance about 180 to 225 feet or 4 or 5 seconds away. Now, if you don't see clearly and your vision's 20/40, and by the way, that's the bare minimum for passing the state driver's test. You need to have 20/40. You'd have to be half the distance, 90 feet to 135 or 2 to 3 seconds away. So when you have more time, more distance, it's easier to work on mirror checks, position of your car, your speed. If something goes wrong, you still have time to recover from it. When you only have 2 or 3 seconds, you don't have time to make a mistake. You've got to be spot on with that decision making. The next term is distance vision. I want you to write that down. If your distance vision is poor, you may not see hazards till it's too late to react safely. Kind of what we just talked about. What would cause problems for distance vision? If you wear glasses and you don't keep them clean. Same thing with your windshield, whether it's clean or not. It'll give you that slight hesitation of, do I see what I really see? Poor distance vision and excessive speed increases risk of making unreliable judgments with potential disastrous results. So distance vision would be knowing that you've got 200 feet to the traffic light. You've got 30 feet to that pothole. The pedestrian's 30 feet off to the right. You've got to be able to see and have a grasp of what that distance is of what you're focusing on. Now, depth perception, you don't have to write this one down. To judge the relative distance of objects correctly, this is knowing where you are in the driver's seat compared to other things. This is why side mirrors, when we talked about using side mirrors, why I think it's so important to have a little bit of the side of your vehicle in your mirror so it gives you that reference, that depth perception of where other things are. Now, the better you are at driving and the more you use your side mirrors, then maybe you can cheat and push it out just a little bit. You have to know depth perception when it comes to following cars. Do I have my 2 to 3 seconds that I need? Pulling out into traffic when you're at a stop sign, knowing how far away that car is. That's basically not only distance vision, but it is depth perception. Now, central vision is a very small area in the middle of your eye that focus. This is what you use to read. This is giving you detail. This is where you really hone in on something and you figure out what is happening, all right? So I've got in bold type here. It says what you focus on is what you see most clearly when you drive. So you're kind of looking at the road up ahead. Do I see lights? Do I see my lines, my signs, my pedestrians? Now, let's see how well you can see. So this is going to be a little test. So what I want you to do somewhere, I want you to put it in the comments, okay, so on YouTube. So I'm going to find out who is still here with me, okay? So what I want you to do is I want you to write down 2 or 3 things that you see from this picture. Okay? Let me get out of this so you can see me. I am going to show you a picture on the screen. You're going to write down 2 or 3 things that you actually see in this picture. All right? Now, a lot of people are going to be writing down the same thing. So let's take a look at the picture and tell me what you see. I'm going to give you 4 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, I'm going to go back. You write down in the comments on YouTube. I'm going to put the music back on for a moment while you write it down. Let's see who is really paying attention. Hey, Mateo, you're the only one that got it. Okay, that was a picture of a baby. The main picture, what I showed you, was a picture of a baby. Everything else, you are all correct. I was impressed. You got the trees, you got the people, you got the lake or the water, you got an island. You named all those stuff, and they're there. But the main picture, the biggest thing in the picture, is a picture of a baby. And Mateo is the only one. I'm looking through the comments here. Way to go. Nice job. Let me show you the picture again. If you look at the tree, way over to the right. Oh, there's a slight echo. Let me try to get out. Let's see. Hopefully the echo is gone. Thanks, Alexander. Near the tree, there's the feet. Up near the tree branches of the hand of the baby. You got the nose and the eye. The forehead is way at the end of the branch. So they drew a picture of a baby, and then they drew everything else around it to kind of take your focus away from it. And the reason why I show this to every class that I have is to let you know that when you're driving, yeah, you're going to see the people, you're going to see the traffic light, you're going to see the signs, the pavement markings, and those are important. They're there. But you've got to look at the bigger picture. Is there something that you're missing? And a lot of times when people are driving, they're kind of driving blindly where they're not picking up that one thing that's going to give them the most trouble. Okay? And a lot of times it's a little bit hidden. And we're going to talk about inattention blindness and what change blindness is. So inattention blindness. Now, this is a big paragraph. I do not want you to write everything down. All I want you to do is to write down the first sentence, and you can even change the way it's written. So inattention blindness is failure by a person to notice something, you don't have to write stimulus, to notice something that is in plain sight. This stimulus is usually unexpected, but it's fully visible. This typically happens because humans are overloaded with inputs. It is impossible to pay attention to every single input that is presented. A person's attention cannot be focused on everything, and therefore, everyone experiences inattentional blindness. Now, driving at some point is going to be second nature. It's that muscle memory that we were talking about. So it's going to be easy to say, I've got to work on my speed. I've got to work on my position. I've got to check my mirrors every once in a while. But you're going to forget looking for signs. You're going to be forgetting to look way to the left, way off to the right, where pedestrians could be hidden. Let me show you how people can be oblivious to something that is very, very obvious. So watching this video, whether you can see what they're missing.
The difference between these two men seems obvious. Their faces are different, their hair is different, even their shirts are a different color. And yet an experiment by psychologists Dan Simons and Chris Chabris at Harvard reveals that our brains actually process very little of what comes in through the eyes.
In this experiment, a subject comes up to a counter and a first experimenter hands them a consent form. As soon as they finish signing the consent form, they hand it back to the first experimenter, who then takes the consent form, ducks down behind the counter to put it away, and a different experimenter then stands up and hands the subject a packet of information and sends them into a hallway where we ask them questions about it.
This wonderful experiment uncovers an aspect of the brain's attention system known as change blindness.
Change blindness is the idea that we often miss large changes to our visual world from one view to the next. We're often not able to see large changes that would appear to be perfectly obvious to somebody who knows they're going to happen.
And incredibly, in 75% of cases, the subjects don't notice a thing.
The lady who took me up here, she opened the door for me and told me to walk over to the desk.
This form.
All right. I think there was a sign that said experiment.
Mm-hmm.
And a man there gave me a form to sign.
Mm-hmm. there was the guy standing under a big sign that said experiment. And to my left, there was like a pot with some dirt in it and some plastic containers. Is it the fifth?
Yeah. Oh, I filled out a form.
Okay.
Right. How long would it be about before? So then I asked him how long it would take, and he said about 10, 15 minutes or so. I guess I have the time to do that.
Did you notice anything unusual at all after you signed the consent form?
I just signed it, and I didn't even pay attention to anything that was written on it.
Okay.
Yeah.
After you handed it back to him, did you notice anything unusual happen at all?
If you could just take this into the next room.
No, I probably wasn't even looking that direction. I probably
Okay.
turned and looked towards the clear door. I saw some people there.
Okay.
Then I turned back and looked at him for a second.
Okay. Did you notice anything unusual at all after you signed the consent form?
No. This is only going to take 5 or 10 minutes.
Yeah,
Okay.
it'll be real short.
Okay.
The person who stood up was actually a different person.
Okay.
I gather you didn't notice that that was different? A different person actually stood up and handed you this form and sent you out toward me. I gather from your action you didn't notice that?
No.
Okay. Don't feel bad about that. Actually, most of the time, we find about 75% of people don't notice.
You serious?
Yeah. The person who stood up with the packet was actually a different person
Wow.
than the first person.
That is incredible.
So I gather you didn't see it then.
I didn't catch that, no.
Okay. What's really interesting is that some people notice these changes and other people don't notice these changes.
Okay, if you could just take this.
And we really don't yet have a good idea
Take that and go into
what separates those people who don't from those people who do. It might be that there are individual differences and some people are better able to detect these sorts of changes. But it's also possible that it's just coincidence, that the people who noticed it just happened to be focusing on a feature that changed. They just happened to be paying attention to the color of the person's shirt.
take this into the next room.
And the people who failed to notice it just happened to be paying attention to something.
Now you're probably all thinking, I would never do that. I would notice someone going down below a desk and someone different coming up, right? You're all thinking, you're not talking about me. I got it together. I'm not gonna miss anything. Here's a little challenge, okay? Once again, you're gonna have to put your comment in the YouTube comment box, okay? I'm gonna show you another short video clip. You gotta tell me what has changed. How many changes took place and what were they? All right? Think about it. How many things changed? So you're going to give me a number, 1, 2, 3, 8, 5, and then try to write down what they were. All right? Okay, let's see if you can do it.
Watch this next sequence carefully. At the end, I'll ask you a question about what you've seen.
Hi, I'm Magic Singh, and today we're in Portobello Road, and I'm going to show you guys a classic in Magic, using matches. And today to help me out is Mark. Mark, tell you what, place your hand up for me nice and flat. Now, I promise this won't hurt, all right? So here's the idea. Let's just light this up, and if you close onto that nice and tight, here we go. Watch this.
Keep watching.
Don't know if you felt that or not. I'll tell you what, have a look inside. Open it up. See how the match is actually returned into the book, and it's still burnt. Okay, you're not impressed. All right, it was my first trick ever. But here's the idea. Just place that back in your hand, close it tight, and turn it face down again if you can. Now we're going to use one more thing, and we're going to use a magician's best friend, playing cards. Now the idea is really simple. You're going to choose one, so take anyone you like. Perfect. Have a look for yourself, and do me a favor, show the camera as well if you can. Brilliant. And you know what? Place it back face up on the deck. Now, it doesn't matter if I see what the card is, because we're going to do something completely different. Just watch this. Here we go. I'll do it slowly. Watch the king. I don't know if you felt that or not. Tell you what, have a look inside. Open it up.
Oh,
Check it out.
it's the King of Diamonds. It's my card.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
Very much.
Did you watch the trick closely? This is a famous illusion called inattention blindness. This illusion is not about the magic. While watching the routine, you may or may not have noticed the changes taking place. The question is, how many changes did you see?
Okay, I'm going to stop it right there. I'm going to show you the end, so they're going to show you what changed. So right now in the comments, you don't have to tell me what changed. We'll make it really simple. Just give me a number. Give me a number of how many things you saw change, okay? Let's see. I'm going to put the music on. So you got to write down how many things changed. How many things changed? You guys are coming up with a good number. No one's got it right though yet. Hey, Adam. Adam is correct. Adam's got the right number. So let's go back. Let's go back to the video and we'll finish.
Not about the magic. There are 5. The answer is there were 3 changes. The first change was the red hanky to a green one. The second was his shirt swapping to a t-shirt. The last was his assistant becoming a completely different person. How many did you see? So why is it that you didn't see these big changes? And the reason is that the brain receives so much information on its eyes that you can't see everything simultaneously. So instead it picks and chooses according to what it thinks is important. If you change something that it doesn't think is important, you just literally don't see it.
Now, what I want you to write down in your notes, and this is where this is going to come into play with driving, so write this down. Distracted driving leads to inattention blindness. Because I'm looking at the camera right now. If I was to look down at my keyboard and look back up, I may be focusing on something that I think is important, okay? But I may have missed something that had changed. In my mind, I think everything is staying the same when I look down, but when I look back up, something may have changed and I just don't pick it up right off. I'm looking on something that has stayed the same. So let's say that I'm focusing on the pedestrian. I look down, I still see the pedestrian, but the light just changed on me. I thought it was a green light, but now it's a yellow light, and I don't know whether I should go or stop. That's why you've got to be very careful about what you're doing while you're driving, where you're distracted. It doesn't have to be the cell phone. It could be the radio. It could be talking to a passenger, picking something up, in the cup holder or whatever. That's going to lead to change blindness or inattention blindness. So I'm going to show you one. This is the last clip that we have today on inattention blindness. I want to show you.
You are about to take part in a quick experiment. Take a look at this. Okay, now, did you happen to notice anything odd? Watch again. See any changes?
Don't worry if you didn't see that it's 2 different men. It means your brain is doing exactly what it should be. It's focusing on the meaning of the scene rather than on the irrelevant details.
Imagine how much energy and brain mass it would take for us to remember every single person, place, or thing we encountered. The things that matter, a conversation with a coworker, your child's first step, would be drowned by a deluge of information. So when there are minor changes to the world around us, we often don't pick up on them. There are 2 similar phenomena at work.
Inattentional blindness is the failure to notice something that's fully obvious right there in front of you when your attention is engaged on something or someone else. Change blindness is a failure to notice a difference between what's there right now and what was there a moment ago.
Scientists such as Daniel Simons from the University of Illinois have spent years devising experiments testing just how perceptive and unperceptive humans actually are.
So we feel like we're aware of everything, that we're taking in all of the details, and that if something important happens, we'll automatically notice it. It'll capture our attention. The reality is that we often don't notice unexpected things because we're aware of far less of our world than we think we are.
So how much or how little are we actually aware of? We decided to recreate one of Simon's most famous experiments to see for ourselves. Here's the setup.
Our senior series producer Vin poses as a lost pedestrian and asks a passerby for directions.
Excuse me, I'm looking for the skyline.
Then, we break the two up, walking through them holding a large sheet of wood. Now watch as I replace Vin. You might think people would notice the switch, but almost half the time, they didn't. Of course, that means more than half the time they did. We only tried the experiment 9 times, and by no means was it good science, but we were surprised 4 people didn't notice the switch. In Simon's original experiment, 7 out of 15 people didn't either. So what determines whether or not you can figure out the switch?
When you look at another person, you encode what's relevant for what you're doing right then, in that case, giving directions, and you don't pay attention to the details that are irrelevant, say what color their shirt is or exactly how tall they are. As long as you are able to make sense of the meaning of the scene and roughly the main categories of that person, say their height, their age, what race they are, what sex they are, as long as those important things don't change, the meaning of the scene really hasn't changed and you're not going to notice that anything's different.
Scientists have documented inattentional and change blindness since the 1970s, and while they allow you to focus your attention, this failure to see every detail can prove costly. Drivers often cause accidents because they overlook quick changes to their environments, such as pedestrians or cyclists. Faulty memories can wreak havoc during eyewitness testimony.
The goal of vision isn't to build a photograph or a complete model of the world in your mind. The goal of vision is to make sense of the meaning of the world around you. Being aware of our limitations can help us adapt and compensate for them, allowing us to do things that prevent the really negative consequences that can happen due to failures of awareness.
For example, Simons thinks that people might be willing to put away their cell phone when driving if they just understood the limits to their attention. Juries might realize that eyewitness testimony is far from ideal. And the next time you and a friend are fighting about the details of a past event, it's likely you're both wrong. Now that's something to remember.
So basically, what we're learning is that our eyes can sometimes lie to us, that it's giving us false information, or at least we're recording it falsely. We're not seeing it the way that it's actually being portrayed. We're going on past memory. We're not focusing enough, and it's leading to problems. These are all the videos. A couple of them I cut out. Okay, peripheral vision I want you to write down. Peripheral vision is a 180-degree area. So it's basically from shoulder to shoulder. Let me get out of this for a second. So when you put your arms out and move your fingers forward like this, so that's 180 degrees, okay? So when your arm's out straight with your fingers pointing forward, your eye should be able to see way over here or over here, okay? That's 180. But most of the time when we're driving, we're probably looking at a 45 degree or 35 degree area. This is why we're having a problem sometimes with the center line, that people just aren't focusing, and they're missing their lines. Lines are to give us bearing, and we're going to see that in a moment anyways. But the two things I want you to write down about peripheral vision, the only thing that we're getting from that side vision, way over where our fingers were moving, okay, write this down. It helps you see light. Okay, so if something was brighter or dimmer, your eyes are going to see that it's changing intensity of light, and it shows you a movement or color. Okay, So it detects light, especially with moving objects, and it gives us color. We can see that something's blue, we can see something's red, we just don't know what it is. That is telling us that we've got to turn our head. That way we can use our visual acuity. And then that's going to give us detail, which gives us concrete information to make a decision. So with scanning, peripheral vision is telling you that there's something there that you've got to pick up, but then your head has to turn and your eyes have to focus on what you're going to be looking at. Now, there are 4 other aspects of vision that I want you to write down. Color vision, night vision, glare vision, and glare recovery. So this was all from the textbook. So let's deal with the first one, color vision. My son-in-law is colorblind. Like right now, he probably think that this slide is red rather than orange. He thinks sometimes green is brown. Blue can be purple. But people that have color blindness can compensate knowing where the position of lights on a vehicle are, like your tail lights, your braking lights. By the way, in the comments, someone tell me, everybody, I want to give me an answer here. What color are your backup lights? Let's see who can get it right. What color are your backup lights? So we've got lots of lights on the car. Turn signals, hazard lights, backup lights, brake lights. But I have found in all the classes that I teach that people have a problem knowing backup lights. So let's see who's going to come up with the correct answer. Next one I want you to write down is night vision. That's the ability to see in low variable light. We just passed what they call dusk. And then when the sun comes up, it's dawn. That's when we're just between being light or, hey, Mateo is killing it tonight. White, good, John. Let's see who's going to give me the wrong answer. White, everybody's getting white. This is a smart class. A lot of people put down red, okay? But you guys are nailing it. Awesome. Other concerns that your eyesight gets worse as you get older. Look out for headlight glare. Dimming headlights are very important. Be careful if you drive around in a car that has dark windshields or poorly aimed headlights. That's going to make driving at night more difficult. And you have to remember, hopefully you've been driving with your parents, even though you're not driving with me, but you're logging those 40 hours. Remember, 10 hours has to be done at night. So getting those night hours in, really important. Like tonight would be a perfect night for it. It's beautiful. Could have the sunroof open or the windows down. Okay, but usually like right now I'm looking out the window. We're right still in dusk because it is a fairly still light out that you should have your headlights on right now, but you could probably still drive fairly well and still see the road if you've got good eyes. Glare vision, the ability to see when there is a rapid increase of light. So this would be coming around a corner, coming up over a hill, and the sun is just beating down right square in the face. This is going to happen early in the morning when the sun just comes up or late in the afternoon when the sun goes down. It is blinding. This is why I recommend you should always have sunglasses with you when you drive. Don't rely on the sun visor as being your only course of blocking that glare. And you should never, and I'm going to get out of this for a second, you should never drive with a hand, like I've got a light right here. Okay, I'm going to block the light out. You should see how my face is dark right now. I'm blocking the, you should never be driving blocking out the light source, because right now I've got one hand on the wheel. Okay, if I take away the hand, notice my face, all of a sudden it brightens up a little bit. So sun visor is good, but glasses are much better. Timely communications. When it comes to seeing, are you courteous? Are you cooperative in your driving? Give you and others time needed to see and respond to situations. Reduces anxiety and stress, and reduces risk to yourself and to others. This is why you want to communicate with your signal and with your headlights, your brake lights braking early enough to give people time to react to what you're doing. So better vision gives people more time to do what is right, and that's what we want to do. Now, untimely or non-communications, this is a sign of an attitude where you're very competitive, aggressive, uncooperative. It decreases the amount of time one needs to see and understand the action. So people are going to, be beeping at you, flipping you off because you didn't give them enough time. And it requires a reaction rather than a response. A response is when someone does something where they know what you're doing, and so this is what I'm going to do. A reaction is that they have no other choice. They're just dealing with what you're forcing them to do. As we said, it increases stress and anxiety, and it increases risk to yourself and to others on the road. Better ways to communicate, all right? Headlights. Okay, as I told you, when you drive with me, we're going to have headlights on all the time. We call them day running lights. We want to be seen. Now, this I want you to write down. I want your turn signals on at least 5 seconds before we're turning. And that kind of translates to about 100 feet or so in town and about 500 feet on the highway. But about 4 to 5 seconds is enough time with signal lights to let people know what we're doing. Brake lights, as we said before, do it early. That way people can get to their brakes in enough time. Reverse lights, yes, you are correct. They are white. We've had a few people with the wrong answer. Horn. This is an item on the car that it's surprisingly how many people just don't use their horn. They just don't. And you should. To let people, usually when you beep a horn, people are going to turn their head, and that's what you're trying to do. It's not to make people upset, it's to have people to turn their head. Hand signals. If hand signals, I'm going to get out. Hand signals, okay, when your arm's out the window, are you communicating to people what you're doing? Now, motorcycles and bicycles have to do hand signals. So your hand up, okay, is a right hand turn. Left hand turn, slow and stop. So be familiar with your hand signals. Right, left, stop. Now in the summertime, hands out like that may make it seem like they're just not stopping, but they're just putting their hand out the window. So it is kind of confusing. Lane position we'll talk about later tonight. And speed approaching the turn, curve, or hill. Have the right speed. Common errors with communicating. You just forget to use your signal. That is going to aggravate people. You turn or use your directionals last second. Or you give the wrong information. Or you go in the wrong direction. These are all things that are honest mistakes, but it's something that we should all work on getting better at. Now, as I told you, I was going to put the DMV worksheet on the Facebook page, and I think I did that around 5:30, 6 o'clock tonight. So if you're looking to see how they're going to grade you, remember there are mark-offs for these things that we're mentioning right now. So think about this with directionals. It's better to have your directional on and not need them than to need them and not have them on. You're never going to get penalized on your driving test for putting your right signal on, making a right-hand turn, even though you might not need it. But if you did need that directional on, I'll almost guarantee, okay, depending on how you're driving, they're going to mark you off on a driving test. And that takes care of vision. Okay, the next thing we're going to go over, and this is from the curriculum, so you did not have any reading on this, so there is no reading that I can give to you. This is all going to be your notes tonight. So vehicle movement and placement of your vehicle on the road. So understanding the science of movement and the vehicle placement will create a safer drive for everybody out on the road. So some of these terms I think I've already used in our topic, so they may sound somewhat familiar, but we're going to kind of dive in a little bit deeper on what they are. So I want you to write down these three terms: pitch, roll, and yaw. And the definition for pitch, it's when the weight of the vehicle either goes forward or it shifts backwards. Okay, so the vehicle pitches, either dips forward or it dips back. Roll is when the vehicle's weight shifts to one side, leans to the right, leans to the left. And yaw is when the vehicle's rear tire shifts on the opposite side that you're turning. And I'll explain that a little bit more when I get a diagram, so it will make a little bit more sense. So write those down. One is going to be on your midterm. Hint, hint, hint. So here's an example of pitch. Usually when people start out driving and they hit the brake pedal a little bit harder than normal, the car's going to pitch pretty aggressively. And that's a sign of inexperience or lack of drive time. So if you look at the bottom diagram of the car, that's a car that's pitching forward. The car at the top is accelerating. So when we talked about manual transmission last night, so if you're popping the clutch and accelerating, your front end is going high, your back end is going low. So that has a lot to do with how you're using either your accelerator or your brake pedal. And you don't have to write these down. Just be familiar with pitching forward has to do with braking, pitching backwards has to do with accelerating. So that basically means you're just not familiar with the transmission, you're not familiar with the vehicle, and we covered that last night with a manual. Get comfortable in a parking lot, in an automatic. Hopefully your parents took you out in a parking lot or a back road to kind of work on that feel of how to make the car stop or go without anything excessive when it comes to pitch. Now the next term, roll, has to do with the speed that you're going into a turn. It could be the road design or it could be the weather. All right. So take a look at the yellow arrows. So rolling, and if you look at the red car, that car is rolling to the right. So the right side is dipping down and the left side is lifting up. Okay, that's an example of roll. So it has a lot to do with the speed coming into that turn. So feel the movement of your body. And I'm going to get out of this for a second. How many of you, when you've been driving with your parents, you're driving and you go into a turn and your parents holler at you, slow down, you're going too fast into the turn. And you're going, I'm going the speed limit, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, but this is what I want to show you. You're holding on to the wheel while you're turning, so your body is staying upright. When someone is sitting next to you and you make a turn too fast, their body does this. They have nothing to hold on to. So they feel the movement of the turn more than you do. So just remember that. A lot of times people don't have a good sense of what the vehicle is doing because they're not holding on to a steering wheel and you are. So that's why it seems kind of bizarre for them. Now this is yaw. This is where it gets kind of strange. Notice the back of the vehicle. See the arrow pointing up? So that's the back right side of the vehicle is going up. The bottom left tire is going down. So if you take a look, and I'm going to use the textbook here for a minute. I'll get out of here. So right now, if I can get it where the camera is a little higher. See, right now it's pretty level. So if I lift up the back up high, see how it's going high? Right where my finger's going up and down, it's going low. So if you're going into a turn, what's going to happen is the vehicle is going to spin out. Okay, this is what happens in bad weather, whether it be rain or snow or sleet, is that the front end is dipping down, the back end is going up, and the car is spinning. So if the car is losing control, it's basically because the center, the axis of your vehicle is spinning on that axis. So you're dipping down in the front, and your back end's lifting up off the pavement, and then you're spinning out and around. Now that may be a fun thing to experience in a parking lot, but you don't want to be in downtown Portsmouth with cars all around you, and all of a sudden the car is leaving the lane. It's going to be kind of crazy. You don't want that to happen. Now, I do want you to diagram where it says cornering. So I want you to draw this diagram, and notice the car. It's got 3 arrows, a green arrow, a blue arrow, and a red arrow. And this is what I want to convey to you and have you understand. You see where the word apex is? It's really in the middle of the turn. So what I want you to do is to draw this diagram, and right in the middle of the road, okay, draw a line so the road is cut in half. And where the red car is going towards the line, okay, going towards the line, I want you to write down brake, brake, brake. I'm going to come out of here and try to explain it. So when you're coming into a turn, you always want to be braking at the first part of the turn till you get to that apex, the middle part. When the back of your vehicle gets past the middle of the turn, then you accelerate out. So don't accelerate at the beginning. Accelerate when you get right halfway through and then go out. Let's go back to the diagram. So the red arrow is where science is taking you, inertia. That's physics. Okay, that's where the car wants to go. It's going straight right now. It wants to continue to go straight. But now we're going to put some input into the vehicle. We're going to start turning the wheel. So we want to go where the green arrow is. So in our mind, we're thinking, I don't care how fast I'm going. Here's the yellow line. Here's the white line. I know where the center of the road is. I want to go where that green arrow is. So notice the blue line is a perfect split between science and what you think's going to happen. So the blue line is where the car is actually going to go. So you're not right. Science is not right. There was a little bit of input with the steering wheel. You're going where the blue arrow is. Now, if you were to brake before that point and then accelerate, then you're going to be more accurate with that green arrow. The other thing that I want you to take a look at, you don't have to write this down, but notice what it's doing to your tire. See those blue arrows on the bottom picture? Air is leaking out. There's a seal. Where the red line is, that is the rim of your tire. The black is the rubber of your tire. When you make a turn too fast, you're pulling the rubber away from the rim a little bit. And these little pinholes, air is escaping. This is why when you check your tire pressure, you go, why is my tire so low? Well, you're probably making your turns too fast and you're losing air the way that you're driving. That's why you got to check the tire pressure in your tires on a regular basis, because they are going to get lower. And heat loss happens, write this down, it happens more in the summer than it does in the winter. Because your rubber is warmer, it flexes more, so it's going to be pulling apart from that pocket right there a little bit. Okay. Target. What are you aiming for? So what I want you to write down, the big word target. Target is that circle in that picture. You're looking way down the road, and that's where you want to go. Now, you've probably heard from your parents or maybe from other people or read it or heard it somewhere that you're lining up the center of your your hood of your vehicle, if you've got like a hood ornament, or find where the middle part is and line it up off to the side of the road. No, you're aiming just as far as you can. You're using your steering wheel as your aiming tool. So at 12 o'clock, let's see if I can get out of this picture. See that little white band on the steering wheel? That's 12 o'clock. See how it lines up with the circle up above? You're using your steering wheel to aim to that. Now, granted, as you start driving and you come into turns, that steering wheel or 12 o'clock white line is going to move a little bit, but so isn't your target. So you're always trying to keep it lined up. So let me go back. Where that green area to the left is where your left tire is. Where the green area is ending on the right is where your right tire is. So that is where your car is traveling. So make sure you have down in your notes, you've got your target, which is way down the road. It's usually being aimed with 12 o'clock on your steering wheel. And where your car is traveling is called your target path. So if you take a look at that black mark at 12 o'clock and you look at the circle, is the car on target or off target? It's off target. If we let the car go right now, just let go of the steering wheel and let the car go and the wheel does not move, that black mark at 12 o'clock is going to go right into that mailbox. You're going to go right into the opposing lane. Okay? That is not where you want to go. So you've got to move the steering wheel probably to 1 o'clock to get it back online. Okay, now the car is back on target. Now we're lined up. Now we know where we're going. So what does this tracking and this target path really do for us? It helps us on how to look, where to look, and what to look for. It gets our attention looking further down the road rather than down to the first 50 feet of where you're traveling with your vehicle. Okay, it's much better to pick up the condition of the road, your lines, traffic lights, and signs by looking further down the road than looking just the first 50 feet. Now, here's a picture, and let's put you in a situation. It says you intend to make a right turn. Where is your target? You're basically going to be not looking at the middle of your lane anymore. You're going to be looking at the license plate of that truck. So you're going to be looking at the middle of the lane that you're going to be going to. And guess what? Your steering wheel is going to move to 1 o'clock, and that's going to allow you to slide over to that right lane. Now, of course, you're going to put your signal on, check your rear view mirror, side view mirror, shoulder check before you move over. So we've got a couple terminology things here that kind of going to seem kind of strange. I'm not a big fan of the terminology here, but just in case they throw it at you for your driving test, write down LOS and POT. Write down LOS, POT. LOS is line of sight. POT is path of travel. Okay? So the driver does not see a problem. The driver does not necessarily have time or space to effectively deal with a problem. So I just gave you the definition. Here it is. I forgot that I had it on this slide. Okay. Let's write down environment. Okay. LOS. Weather conditions. Curves. Hills. Intersections. Buildings. Bridges. Fences. Trees. Bushes. Signs. Billboards. So sometimes we're not going to be able to see too well because of what is around us. Okay? Other vehicles, parked vehicles, trucks, buses, stopped, slow-moving vehicles, vehicles entering from the roadway. All these are situations that as a driver, and a lot of these are going to be coming at intersections. When you're at a traffic light or if you're at a stop sign, you've got to really look to the left or look to the right. there's two terms that I want you to write down. One is legal stop, and the other one is a safety stop. So a legal stop is stopping at the stop line. A safety stop is where you're stopping at the line with your legal stop, but then you're moving forward. So write that down. POT with caused by the environment. These could be red lights, stop signs, yield signs, intersection narrowing lanes, surface conditions like a rough, bumpy area, rain, ice, snow, water. All these are going to be caused by the environment. You have no control over this. None at all. Other path of travel problems would be slow-moving vehicles, turning, parked vehicles, when people get too close to you from behind, so checking your rearview mirror. Pedestrians, animals out on the road are going to cause you to move to the left or move to the right a little bit. So keep that in mind. I do want you to diagram this. There are 6 what we call quadrants. Front left, front middle, right front, left rear, center rear, and right rear. So you've got 6 quadrants that you have to be familiar with. Now, everything that's within that 180 degrees forward is going to be to the front of the car. And your rearview mirror or your side view mirrors are picking everything up from your 180 degrees or behind you. Now, this picture I know is very difficult to see, but I want you to take a moment and I want you to see how many people that you can pick out in this scene. Now, these people are all over. They're pedestrians, okay? We're not talking about the people in cars. They've got to be outside of a car. But I want you to figure out, just take about 30 seconds and count how many people you see in this picture. Okay, did you see 8 people? There are 8 people in this picture. From the sidewalks to the crosswalks, on the left side of the sidewalk, and there are 2 people near that white truck. One person where the white doors open up, he's putting his hands up on the ladder, tying it, and then you've got a person walking towards the door. There are a lot of things that you just don't pick up when you're driving. And remember, we talked about inattention blindness earlier tonight. So this is where you really want to be scanning and looking attentively to what is happening up ahead. Now, these 5 positions, I want you to diagram. And while you diagram that, I'm going to take my whiteboard and I'm going to diagram it. And I'm going to show you what they are. So just make a picture of a road with a white line and a center line and make those 5 positions. Okay, hopefully you were able to diagram it, and I did it too. So I'm going to hold it up. Okay, So what I want you to write down, the one in the middle, between the dotted line and the edge line, is label that your center position. You're going to be driving in this position probably about 80-85% of the time. Okay? This is the center position. Over here, we've got far left. All right? Now, why would you go from the center position over here? Okay, let me give you a couple of reasons. There could be a bicyclist over here. There could be a pothole that's lined up with one of your tires. But more than anything, this is where you're going to be when you get ready to make a left-hand turn. You should never make a left-hand turn from the center position or from the far right position. When you make a left-hand turn, you're going to change your speed, your position, and a directional to indicate that you're going to make a left-hand turn. Now, same thing. You need to go over far or right of center when you make a right-hand turn. Why would you be traveling over here rather than in the center? Same thing. Could be a pothole. It could be someone that's distracted and crossing over the center line. Those are good examples. Now, far left would be like you're going around a mail truck or a dump truck. And if you go to the far right, it could be an emergency, a vehicle that's coming. It could be someone that's really a distracted driver or falling asleep, or a drunk driver. You're going to go way over to the side of the road to get away from where they're going from. So there are 5 positions on the road that I want you to be familiar with. So let me get them a little closer. So that's what I want you to know. All right? So when you're driving with me, you're going to hear those terms. Go far right, go right of center, go left of center. The state uses lane position 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And there's no way that you're going to remember L1, L2, L3 lane position. So that's why I didn't have that. All right. Back to the manual. Turning and signaling. The use of vision and judgment is vital in making sound decisions. So here are some more notes that I want you to write down. So anything that deals with a number, I want you to write down. I'm going to probably test you on it. So we were just talking about target and target path. When you're looking down the road, you should be looking at a spot that's at least 20, 30 seconds up ahead of you. That's giving you ample time to figure out, what am I going to do? Let me give you an example. You're looking 20, 30 seconds down the road. Let's say that there's a traffic light, there's a loose dog on the right, and there's a pothole close to the center of the road in your lane, near the yellow line. Okay? So you've got 3 things that you saw. You've got to put them in order, and they're going to come in order as the hole, the dog, the traffic light. So within those 20 to 30 seconds, you're thinking about your position and how you're going to handle each one of those problems. Because you probably won't stay in the center position for all 3. Okay? Now, signaling, I already gave you this tonight. Signal your intent about 100 feet in town, 500 on the highway. What is 100 feet? 100 feet would probably be the distance between 2 telephone poles. So when you see 2 telephone poles, you probably got your distance. That's probably close to 5 seconds, maybe 4 seconds. If you're going in town speed on the highway, that's going to probably be your last sign that you see on the highway before your exit. You should always underline, put a star. This is one of the most important things for you to remember on your driving test. Always, always, always check your mirror for traffic behind you when you put your directional on. Because remember, the minute you put your directional on, it's telling people that you're turning and they're getting ready to see your brakes, your brake lights. You're preparing for people to deal with what you want to do. Hopefully they're not going to tailgate you. Because if you don't put on a directional and you are a late braker, one of these days you're probably going to get hit from behind. Give people the time and the distance. We just talked about communicating, being courteous. This is going to be helpful. Always check your blind spot, especially in town. because you never know when bicycles and scooters could be coming up on the side of you, especially to the right. Now, you don't have to write this down, but this is good driving practices to put in when you're out with your parents. Because we talked about roll just a moment ago. On a right-hand turn, you should probably be going around 5 to 10 miles per hour going into that turn. On a left-hand turns with no traffic, you can go slow but slightly faster than a right-hand turn. So maybe you can go about, 10 to 12, 14 miles per hour. But if there is traffic coming, you have to stop, let the traffic go by, and then make your left-hand turn. You cannot cut people off making a left-hand turn and go fast. That's not the way you want to be trained. That's not the way that you want to be. Here's 2 more terms that I want you to write down. Gaps and holes in traffic. When you see vehicles that prevent you from entering the flow of traffic, look beyond them and locate either a gap or a hole. So a gap is a space between vehicles. A hole is a space between traffic clusters. So make sure you write down in your notes, a hole is bigger than a gap. A gap is going to probably be your 3 to 4 seconds of following distance. So when you've got 2 cars that have that following distance, you don't want to interfere with that. That's what they're supposed to have. A hole is going to be between clusters of traffic, and it's going to probably be between the 2 vehicles be like 6 seconds, 7 seconds. So you're scooting in that hole, and you're going to have 3 seconds in front of you, and then you're going to have 3 seconds behind you. So a hole is going to be like at least 6 seconds between cars. This is how your eyes are scanning. We're talking about peripheral vision tonight, but you're looking all the way around, looking left, looking right, looking straight ahead, never just going straight ahead. So with turning, and we kind of talked about this already, when turning out in front of another vehicle, so say that you're at a stop sign and you're going to be making a left-hand turn, and you see a car that's coming from the left, and they have their directional on. Don't always trust someone's going to do the right thing because they have their directional on. You want to do the last 2 things mentioned here in 2 and 3. So if you're going to pull out into traffic, you've got to say to yourself, do they have their turn signal on? Yeah, they do. Second question you're asking yourself, if they're making a right-hand turn where I'm turning out from a street at a stop sign, have they changed their speed? Can I see their brake lights? Yes, I can. Have they gone from the center position over to the right or far right? Yes, they have. So if you're answering yes to those 3 questions, then you probably should pull out from the stop sign. Now, the reason why I say probably is because if you look to the right of you at the stop sign, is there another driveway or another business that they could be putting on their directional and doing all these 3 things, but they're not turning right where you are. They're turning just a little bit further up from where you are. That's the confusing part. That's where you're going to cut somebody off and they're going to beep their horn at you. So you got to be really careful. So that's something that you got to think about. Some problems with turning and signaling. Going too fast, late directional, over understeering, communicates the wrong direction. I could care less. If I tell you go right and you put your left directional on, you take a left. It gets us off route for a little bit, but I really don't get upset about that. But if I tell you to make a right-hand turn and you put your left directional on and then you make a right-hand turn, oh my goodness, that could lead to a crash. Because if you put your left directional on, people behind you going, oh, they're turning left, I can legally pass this person on the right. And if you don't check your rear view mirror, side view mirror, and you do indeed turn to the right, you're going to run that car right off the road that's passing you because you've got your left directional on. So make sure if you make a wrong decision or communicate the wrong thing, you also go the wrong way. Don't do the opposite. Can't find a turning area or you left your directional on, that's always aggravating. When should you use your turn signals? Write all these down. I will test you on this. It's not question 96, by the way. It used to be on another sample test that I gave. So I just had people, remember, I'm going to give you a test, and this is going to come up on 96. So changing lanes, you got to use your directional. Turning at an intersection, left or right, got to communicate it. Enter or leave an expressway. So that's your on-ramps and your off-ramps. Pulling away from the curb. You've just got done parallel parking. You got back in your car. Now you want to leave. Put your directional on. Or you got a telephone call. You can't talk on the phone. It's illegal. So you put your signal on and you pull over. Okay, so that's another one. Pull over to the side of the road because you've got a phone call. Parking, like angle parking, perpendicular parking. You want to communicate to people that you're taking an empty parking spot. And lastly, backing out of a driveway or backing out of a parking spot. Why not use your directional to let people know which way you're going in reverse? You put your directional on to let people know where you're going and drive. So you got to use your directional when you're backing up. Other situations that may arise. Use your hand signals when directionals aren't working. We covered that tonight. Tapping your brakes are going to warn people that you're getting off a highway where there's not much of a deceleration lane. Parking, like parallel parking, you want to tap your brakes a couple times so people know you want that empty spot coming up. Or like there's a box in the road and people behind you can't see it. The law states that you must not follow another vehicle more closely than is reasonable. A reasonable distance depends on the speed of the vehicle along with traffic and road conditions. Okay? So what the state has now changed, it used to be 3 seconds. They increased it to 4. So make sure you understand your following distance is 4 seconds. It's going to be worse in bad weather. So make sure you've got 5 to 6 seconds in bad weather like heavy rain or snow. Stay back 1 car length on a hill. On level ground, like at a traffic light, you want to be back so you can see their tires touching the pavement on the ground. When you're stopped at a crosswalk and someone's crossing, you want to stay back about 10 to 15 feet. Because when you get too close to a crosswalk, what you're really doing is you're telling people you want them to go faster, and that's called pushing. So you don't want to push a person. So stay stopped at that 10 to 15 foot area. Fire trucks. And the interesting thing about anything dealing with fire when it comes to driving in New Hampshire, if they want you to remember a number, it's going to have a 5 in it. So when a fire truck is going to an alarm, legally you can't get behind the fire truck any closer than 500 feet. If you've got a tailgater, how do you handle a tailgater? First thing you want to do is flash your brakes to let them know that they're getting too close. Now, 2 things can happen. 1, they could back off, or they could get really, really angry and get even a little closer. We don't want that to happen. Sometimes you can reduce your speed in a place that they can pass you, so move to the right, go slower. And then your last resort is just to put your directional on, pull over, and let them go by you. Just get rid of that nuisance. You don't hold them up. It's going to take too much of your attention. You do need to know this, so write this down. Vision and time intervals. 20 to 30 seconds we've talked about already. 15 seconds is that visual lead, looking for the problems. Remember the problems that I just gave you, the pothole, the dog, and the traffic light? So within that 15 seconds, you've come up with 3 possible problems. And then from a 5 to 15 second period, you're planning your response. Am I going to brake and steer? Am I going to accelerate and steer? Or am I just going to coast and keep my center position? So you're thinking about your response, what you're going to do. We've already talked about 3 second following distance, and then anything less than 3 seconds is what we consider a crash zone. And if we're in a crash zone, I am probably going to grab the steering wheel. So if you drive with me and I'm touching the steering wheel, that means I could not tell you what I wanted you to do. So rather than tell you, because it's not going to work, I'm going to grab the wheel and then I'm going to do it. Passing, you need extra skill, judgment of speed and distance. At night, it gets even more difficult, and at 55, you'll need at least 10 to 20 seconds to complete a pass. This is the one thing in driving, with me at least, we're probably not going to do. I'm not going to go out and have you pass somebody. Now, if it comes up where we can pass somebody legally, we'll do it, but it's not something that we look for. Every single one of you will be doing lane changes, and a lot of them with me, but we just won't be doing passing. So if there's any doubt about passing, don't do it. Check your passing lane, check your blind spot, signal, then move over to the passing lane. Keep up your speed. This is what I want you to remember for a test. Check the person that you've just passed in your rearview mirror. If you can see both of their headlights, their whole grille, then you can move back to your original lane and not make a shoulder check. You've got to remember that. You've got to, when you pass somebody, you've got to keep up your speed. You've got to do a blind spot check, use your signal. But when you move back over, you've got to see the whole grille of the car you've just passed. You got to get back into your original lane within 200 feet. So that's important to know. Passing on the right is legal only if there's enough pavement. So if you leave the pavement, it becomes illegal. So if you're hitting the dirt, you're not doing it right. They could probably give you a ticket for that. You got to stay behind the person while they're making their left-hand turn. So if there's pavement and someone's making a left-hand turn, you can go around them. And of course, you can pass on the right or left on one-way streets and on a multi-lane highway. Situations when you can't pass would be on the left lane of the road, unless it's clear. Top of a hill, that's kind of stupid. Okay, in the middle of a turn, that's kind of stupid. That's common sense, but you'd be surprised how many people are willing to take that chance just to get by someone that's a little bit slower. Wait for that straightaway. Wait for that legal spot on the road that you can pass somebody. 100 feet of a viaduct, bridge, or tunnel. Okay, because you got to get back in. 100 feet of an intersection or railroad crossing. And then, of course, any area where there's a no passing zone sign. And we'll talk more about that tomorrow night, what that shape is and what it looks like. What lane should you be in? On a 2-lane road, always drive on the right side. Leave the left always for passing, whether it be 2 or 3 lanes. So always pick the middle or right lane. Only use the left lane if you're going to be going fast or passing somebody. You should never stay in the left lane for anything. And it's illegal in some states to stay in the left lane for too long. Massachusetts is one of those states. And with, I will test you on this, so I want you to write this down. This will be the last thing that we go over tonight. So on a lane change, 4 things have to happen. You've got to use your directional to indicate you're making a lane change. 2, you're checking your rear view mirror first, then your side mirrors. Thirdly, you're looking peripheral vision. You're going chin to shoulder, whether it be right or left, depending which way you're making a lane change. And then the last thing that you're doing is you're gliding or sliding over to the other lane by either increasing, maintaining, or slowing down, depending on what you have for your checks. And that is it for tonight. We got through everything just about in the time that I wanted, just a little bit longer than I wanted, but I did want to explain homework for tonight is chapter 3 and section 6 in the manual. Of all the different classes that we have, tomorrow night is probably the most important to lay down the foundation of understanding traffic law, signs, signals, pavement markings, having a basic understanding so when you travel from state to state, this should look somewhat familiar because we're going to be talking about things that we don't have here in New Hampshire tomorrow night. And we'll try to explain to make things a little bit easier for you out on the road. So things won't be quite as complicated. We'll make some sense of everything. And we're going to have a little quiz. So check on Facebook. I am going to give you a worksheet probably after class tomorrow. But I'm going to give you a sign. So about 15 minutes or 10 minutes before class. See, there's 21 of you still watching. So make sure you go to the Facebook page and download. It's going to be a sign quiz that we're going to do in class a little bit later tomorrow. So have a good night, and we'll see you tomorrow at 8 o'clock. Supposed to be a hot one. So have fun.